Welcome to another episode of the Profitable Home Services. I'm so happy to have another wonderful guest with us this week. This week's guest is Dave Sullivan from The Roofer Show. And I will fess up that I have been getting his emails for years and have enjoyed the content that he shares with roofers across the country and decided we needed him on my show. So welcome, Dave. Let me run over your bio. It's pretty short. It's like 2 sentences. Here we go. Says, I was a commercial roofing contractor in California for 30 years. He retired 8 years ago, got bored, and started a podcast for roofing contractors. That has led him into business coaching, and now he works with roofing contractors, I'm sure, all over the country, would be my guess.
That's right.
Yes, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks so much for having me on, Diane. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I was kind of short to the point, but that's the story, is that I grew up in a small family roofing business out here in California. And my father, great guy, but he was chained to the business. He was really couldn't get away, didn't do a lot of the things that he wanted to do. And so I came in, bought him out, and wanted to do things differently. And that's what I did. That was the start.
That's the beauty of a second generation business, is you can see how it was built. Usually they have a pretty firm foundation under them, and then you can take it and do something different with it.
Well, hopefully that's the case, because so many family businesses don't make it to that second generation, as you know, and even fewer make it to the third generation. It's and in my case, I made a lot of the same mistakes that he did. And it actually took a business coach to come in and really get my mind right on really some different ways to run the business. And that it changed our lives.
Tell me a little bit about what your business coach showed you that changed the trajectory of your business.
Well, I think the first thing we did, and I think the most important to the success of my business, was coming in and really identifying what it is that you do. Now, in our case, we kind of did everything, as so many contractors do. We did commercial, we did residential, we'd do dog houses, whatever, just to get some revenue in. And we really took a look at it. He came in and says, well, where do you make your money? I go, I don't know, we do roofing. Well, he says, well, you've got two different profit centers for the most part, is residential and commercial. Let's take a look at those. And when we split those out and we really took a look at not only the gross profit and the profitability on those two different services, it also was the fact that on residential, we just weren't very good at it. So our margins weren't very good when we really tore into it, which we had never done before. But also, there was so much more overhead associated with it, because, as I say, we weren't very good at it. We had a lot of callbacks, we had problems, and you're just spending so much time on these smaller jobs. And once we moved away from that, we just closed down all the residential work and focused on commercial. Things just took off, and that just changed the entire company.
I always think that's amazing when I hear stories like that. When somebody really finds, I'm going to use the word, their area of genius, that one area that you should be focusing on, and you actually focus on it, what it can do for your business. Because too many of my roofing clients like to do siding, they're doing roofing, they might get involved with some gutter work, might be doing a little bit of solar. They're just kind of a little bit of everything. It's like, stop, guys. Let's figure out where you're actually making money, because they don't really know.
Exactly. I mean, the riches are in the niches. We want to niche down to what we do profitably. And exactly as you're saying, we've got so many clients that have do different services. Okay, guys that all of a sudden got into the deck business. Well, what are you doing decks? Well, we've had this request and so forth. I go, well, do you make any money at it? Well, not really. I go, well, how much time are you spending there? Well, I'm spending 20% of my day on 5% of my business that we're losing our rear end on anyway. So get out of those. Focus your efforts on where it is that you make the most money, what it is that you're good at, the best use of your time.
And I'm going to throw in that there's that saying, that what gets measured can actually
Mhm.
get improved. But if they don't know their numbers and they've never really stopped and did the calculations that show them that they're making more money in a particular area than in another area, if they've never done those calculations, that's a scary thought to begin with, to actually have to
Definitely.
dig in and figure those numbers out.
Yeah, and that's where we start our business planning because what business are you in? And let's take a look at that because we've got to get down to who that ideal customer is. And that's going to focus us down on where we should spend our time, who we should spend our time with, and where we can make the most profit.
And profit is probably the most important thing in a business, because without profit, you can't pay your team, you can't pay yourself, you can't pay your vendors, you can't pay anybody if you're not being profitable. And I think all too often the focus is on that top line revenue and not that bottom line profit. And they think they
Yep.
can sell their way out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to make it up in profit. No, we're not in the rug selling business. We're not in the airline selling business where that plane's going regardless. You can put a butt in a seat for 5 cents and still make money. We don't have that kind of cost structure where our costs are variable costs. So it's all about that profit, all about the margin. And you don't hear about that often because it's more glamorous. I mean, we sell more, more books. We could sell more seminars by talking about how to scale your business. Let me show you how you can 10 times your business. And that's what everyone wants to do. I talk to contractors. I say, hey, if you're doing, let's say 5 million now, and you want to do 2 million, 10 million. Well, are you making money at the 5? Well, not really. Well, how do you expect to make money on 10? You're just going to lose money faster. And you've got to first build that strong foundation that you can build on and you can grow on. But you've got to have that set up first, your processes, your systems, everything in place so you can grow in control and profitably. An example was, we had a couple of big growth years in our business. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, hold it. We're making less money than we were doing 25% less. What's what's wrong with this picture? So we scaled it back and we're just more profitable. We always like to focus on the margins, focus on profitability because it's all about, hey, work less, make more money.
I find that a lot of my clients start struggling when they get big enough that they're bringing in management, levels of management.
Right.
And now we've got different guys running various crews or running various jobs, and the owner is no longer the person out there doing that. They're trying to keep the office moving or whatever, and the profits seem to just start vanishing on them. And they wonder why. We've gone from million or two to 10 or 15 million, and we're not making money at all. I mean, they got cash because they're keeping the cash turning, but the bottom line is they're not making any profit. And that's always a hard one to sit down and have those conversations with them.
Yeah, it's really hard to keep control of the jobs. So you're making a lot of mistakes. You don't have the people necessarily. And the margins, we've got profit leakage and the margins just aren't there. And then we start throwing people at problems, which is what we see, in our business. A lot of contractors are in the storm business. So you'll have a huge storm come through and then, we're so busy. We've got to get more people. So they throw all these people in, the storm leaves, business slows down for whatever reason. And they've got this huge monster overhead there. And you're looking at, you will go into companies and look at their organizational chart, and it's kind of like, well, what does this guy do? And what's he doing? And you get so much overlap and nobody's really sure what's happening. And it's just a really inefficient operation.
And coming at it from the accounting type, coach type view, when I see all that overlap, I'm hearing ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching,
Exactly.
as that money's just flushing down that toilet because they've got overlap and inefficiencies. And it's a hard conversation to actually have to sit down and do an analysis. How many employees should they have? How many independent contractors should they have to get them to that sweet spot where they have maximum percentage in their margins?
Yeah, and that's where you have to really look at the positions. What kind of positions do we need to run this operation, and start there, and then we can hire the best people for that position. EOS talks about, getting the right seats on the bus, putting the right butts in the seat, same kind of idea. But you want to make sure that you're putting together your organization that's going to run efficiently. And I don't like hire any way I can avoid hiring employees. That's what I want to do, because there's so many automations now. There's so many processes that we can improve upon. Whenever it says, "Oh, I don't have the time to do this." Well, what about if we get this process down? Or what about we use some of the apps, the automations that we, are just, numerous in the service business. And we've really gone to that. We've got some great outsourcers that we use, virtual assistants and so forth. So you don't need to run that, huge operation. We had about 100 employees. I'm going crazy. Forget that. I want to run a lean operation with fewer employees anytime I can.
And then most of the time when you have fewer employees, you feel more like that family, that work family that's working together. Everybody knows what the goal is. They know their positions. They know what the expectations are. As you get bigger and bigger and bigger, that's harder and harder to pull off.
Yeah, and you better be a great leader and a great manager of people, because we start throwing more people out there. We're not focused on building that organization, building that culture, because we're just constantly going through people and just chewing them up and spitting them out. We can't retain people. And it's just got to be a strategic plan that we have to begin with. And that ties into, I had a conversation today with a client, and she's talking about making these huge jumps in sales. Well, okay, well, let's go back, because now you're going to need additional people. Where are those? It's not like you go down to the roofing crew store and pick up all these guys. So now we're going to be throwing B and C players out there that are not going to perform as well as, our solid core. And now you got to get some more trucks. Now you're going to burn through more cash. We've got all of these things to consider. And if you don't think about that first, you're going to be out of control. And again, we're going to start losing margin. And then what's the point? Stay where you are, work on your margin and build that up. And that's how we can afford to hire the best people, to get the best marketing. We don't grow our business to be profitable. We have to be profitable before we can grow a business. And that's, I think, the mistake that so many contractors make.
Right. Yeah. They get it in the wrong order. If there's anything left, they're hoping there's some profit left, instead of doing it the other way around. Where we want to plan, we know we want to hit a certain profit margin this year. What's it going to take to hit it? And then when they want to start expanding and hiring, what if they opened up a savings account and started transferring money to it every payday as if they were paying some of those people? Let's give this a trial run. Can we even do it?
Right.
Before we actually start hiring people. And then 3 months later, what am I going to do? I can't make their salary because the big job is over or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of planning that can go into it to help ensure their success.
Yeah. There's just more to it than, I need more leads. I need more sales. That's going to solve all my problems. Well, sales solves a lot of problems, but making more profit is generally not one of them.
Right. Yes. And so much of the time it has the inverse effect on your profit.
Right. And who needs that? Why do you want to work harder? Why do you want to take more risk? All the things that could go wrong, we got more trucks going down the highway that can get in trouble, more people. If we can make a higher profit doing less work, getting those margins up, I'd rather do that. I mean, it's a lot easier.
It is, yes. So my next question for you is, what is the most unique profit leak that you've seen in roofing companies as you've been coaching with them over the years?
There's a lot of, where do I start?
Give me a couple then. I won't limit it to just one.
Well, here's something that's unique, because we are talking, we run mastermind groups, and we had this discussion because a couple of the contractors had trouble with callbacks, and they were, just having a tough time getting the guys to do these small little things. You get callbacks over nails or this or that. And what we came up with is, in our commercial business, we came up with, we had the same problems, but it turned out that it was this, and I think for contractors, it's usually the same problems over and over again. They're making the same mistakes, or the complaints are the same. And next thing you know, you got a 1-star review from somebody, and it's just, oh my God. So, and not only, yeah, and also the cost. So what we did, we came up with this. It was just basically one page. It's called the Perfect 10. And what that was an inspection that at the end of the job, we had somebody come by, but you could also have whether it's a subcontractor or your lead man, do this, which is take those top 10 items that have been problems over time, and say, leaving nails on the lawn, bent metal, things just didn't look right, or things that would leak and cause problems. And we would have that list, and everybody's got that list, could come up with that, of all those little things that customers are very, want to have done right. And so they would go down, check it off. And if it was perfect, they'd get the next one. If they got a perfect 10 out of 10, perfect, they would get a bonus, the crew. And we'd make a big deal about it. And they got paid well for that, because there's so much more that goes into it. It's the idea of building in that culture of quality, how it's important. We want satisfied customers, how important that is. And it drove home a lot of things. And, we had, callbacks can be a huge expense. And we knocked down our callbacks, our dollars by 80%. So that was huge. Yeah, huge money. And a lot of, where particularly with a lot of roofing contractors use subcontractors to do the work. Well, if you can get your crews to, do this through company cam, take your photographs, do all these things, teach them how to do these, it can really eliminate a lot of the problems, a lot of that driving across town to deal with the problems, having to babysit your crews and so forth. So there's one that's maybe a little unique that's solved a lot of our problems. So
I like that.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, I like that one a lot, because callbacks, nobody wants callbacks.
That's a killer.
Especially when it's for some little small thing. Like, really, we drove all the way over here, spent a half hour, whatever on the road to come back and look at something. And it would have taken somebody 2 or 3 minutes to have fixed it before they left the job site.
Definitely. So, another quick one, which is, the big ones, of course, is to sell your roofs for more money, and differentiate yourself and all of those things, which we hopefully we all know about. But one of the big leaks that comes in is the handoff, and that's coming from sales to production.
Yeah.
And, we always talk about the business being a 3-legged stool. You've got to sell work, you've got to do work, and you've got to keep score. Each of those 3 legs has to be solid. And so you can have all the sales in the world, but if you can't get them on profitably, you're not going to be successful. So where I see a lot of the problem is that handoff between sales and production. How does that go? Well, they just maybe write up a job sheet and say, here you go do the job. Well, that's a recipe for disaster, as opposed to having a pre-job conference where we always wanted to have, here's the for lead man that's going to do the job. I want the salesman out there. I want to agree on the budget. This is how many man days you've got to do this job. Do we all agree? Well, there's no way I can, salesman generally too optimistic, foreman maybe a little pessimistic. Well, we've got to have a meeting of the minds, because that job has to start off where everybody's going, has the same goal. So if we say, okay, you've got 100 man days to do this job, we're ready to go. Everybody agrees. We sign it off, break, let's go do it. You're just going to have much more success when everybody's putting their heads together and going, okay, how do we turn this into the most profitable, smoothest job that we can without problems and without pre-job planning. It's always that handoff is a fumble, and where so many things go wrong, the job goes over. So we lost another day of production, this and that, so that's a big one. And again, we just have a checklist. We always use checklists for everything. Keep it simple. And these are the things that we want to talk about and make sure we cover this, because these are the things that always screw up, because it's the same thing over and over again. We leave the ladder out there. Okay. There's a common one that where's the ladder? Well, we got to go back and get it. Well, why don't we just stencil on, here's your free ladder, just keep it, because it's going to be less money than going out and picking it up. Right.
You're a man after my own heart with your checklist, because I'm a checklistaholic and there is no recovery group.
Keep it simple. And that's it's just stick with the basics, keep it simple, have your process, which is just a checklist. Basically, here's how we're going to do it. We're going to do it this way every time. And you go to McDonald's, and there's the person cooking the burgers, right? They've got their standard operating procedure manual. And here's how you put this much ketchup on, this many pickles. It's simple. It explains exactly how to do it. And if that person leaves or whatever, you've got a quick way to get people up and trained.
And I think a lot of roofing contractors as well, I'm going to throw plumbers, electricians, and HVAC and the rest of them all in there. They struggle with creating checklists, because they know what they're doing. It's up here. I know what I'm doing. And they somehow, I think we think by osmosis that those around us will do it that same way. But without that checklist, without that process, that system around it, Dave does it one way and Diane does it another way. Which one's right? Which one's wrong? Sometimes you can't really say, because there is more than one way to do something, but usually there's one that is more efficient.
So true. You get on a plane, you look at that pilot who's flown that plane 5,000 times. They're going down that checklist, check. They know what they're doing, but it's just every single time, regardless. And you do it the same way.
I know in the accounting industry, we have checklists for most everything we do, so that when you're in a hurry, or when you get tired, or when you get distracted by a phone call or something, that you don't miss something, so that our clients all get the same experience every single time, trying for consistency. And I know how important that is out in the real world, where we're not just moving papers around, but in the real world, where you're in somebody's home, you're in their yard, you're in their backyard, you're doing things that they get a consistent experience, especially if you're doing several jobs within a somewhat close geographical radius, that they get the same consistent experience, because they will talk.
Right. And as you know, we're trying to build value into our business, that we want to build a saleable asset, that at some point down the road, we want to sell our business. We want to pass it on to our kids. We want to roll it up, whatever it is. You've got to have all of these systems and processes in place where the business does not rely on you, because if that's the case, the business has no value. And we talk about this, we call it the 2-week vacation. Well, if you can't take 2 weeks off from your business and have it still run, you don't have a business, you've got a job. And this is what so many contractors, I could never leave for this amount of time. Well, that's because you don't have people that understand what their job is, that take the responsibility, because it's clear. You build these systems and processes in place so you can grow your business, done the same time every time. And that's what builds value into your business, is to have just these streamlined processes as you grow. That's something that's saleable, as opposed to, hey, I've got this blue sky customer list. Well, that's not worth anything. So
hey, but I've got a customer list. Come on now.
yeah, so we always, we build a sell. We always start with that in mind, that at some point we're going to sell our business. We're going to build a franchise model, and we're going to go towards that. And everything that we do is in accordance with that eventual sale.
You've really brought some interesting thoughts today, and I sure appreciate you coming on the program. Do you have any final words of wisdom for our listeners today?
Well, I have some good thoughts and some good ideas, because I've screwed up so many times as a contractor, and I have learned a lot of it the hard way. And this is why you want to get help, and someone like a coach like yourself can, just cut through so many of the mistakes. And it's really about avoiding some of these, because that it's a tough road, learning by all the mistakes and so forth. Get some help, join mastermind groups, get involved, build your network, get a coach that can help you along the way. It just makes things so much more easy, makes it much more profitable and an enjoyable business.
School of Hard Knocks is an expensive school.
That it is.
It costs thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's crazy. And so many people have gone through it.
Right.
And avoid a lot of those arrows.
Yes. Yeah. Learn from other people's, not only just their mistakes, but their challenges and their victories, the things that they've done well. Watch what they do and how they do it. Try to emulate that if you can.
Right. It's not the smart guy doesn't learn from making his own mistakes. They learn from not making them, watching the others make mistakes and learning from that.
Yeah. Well, Dave, how can people reach out to you if they'd like some more information about your podcast, The Roofer Show, or some of the work that you're doing with roofers?
Yeah, well, love to have you check out our show, our podcast. I think we've got about 350 episodes. We were talking earlier about, it's a long time been doing this. It started off as a hobby, and now, how am I ever going to stop? I got to keep that streak going. But that's The Roofer Show. Love to have you check that out. And you can go to theroofershow.com. We've got some good information there. We've got what I think is really helpful. It's a little one-page business plan. It gets you started on the process of planning your business, which is so important. You can download that for free. And if there's anything I can do, you can always reach out, and love to talk to anybody and anything I can do to help.
Well, thank you again for coming on the show today. You've really shared some words of wisdom, and I'm thankful for that, because it's always nice when I get a guest who's been in the trenches, as opposed to somebody has just more book learning than hands-on, I've been there, done it type of stuff. So thank you for sharing with us.
Well, thanks so much for having me on, Diane. I really appreciate it. And I love what you're doing. Love to see you getting starting the podcast. It's a great way to get your message out there and help others. And I've been doing it for a number of years and love every minute of it.
Yeah, well, great. Thank you. And that's a wrap for this episode of our Profitable Home Services podcast. Remember, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. And today, if you'd like, you can grab a free digital copy of my book, The Path to Profitability, which you can see right there behind my head. It's where I share 9 profit boosting tactics that will transform your service business. Head on over to yourpathtoprofitsbook.com. Thank you again, everybody. We'll catch you on the next show.